This here is a full-fledged computer. Yeah, I know, it's literally like the size of my hand. And it's also extremely thin. Now you've probably heard of Intel NUCs. They kind of, I don't want to say pioneered, but they're very popular small form factor PCs that you can kind of just throw in your backpack and bring with you wherever you go. You do need an external monitor, of course, which is the one significant difference between something like this and a laptop, and obviously the shape, the form factor of it all. But it's designed to be extremely portable. Now this is actually extremely affordable as well. It only costs about 150 bucks, and I'm curious as to the kind of value proposition this offers for that price. I don't expect this to do anything crazy. Look, it's only got 6 gigs of RAM in here. It's got an Intel Celeron in3450, which is a quad-core CPU, but it's a bit dated, and its frequency is extremely low, and it only has 128 gig M-SATA SSD. Now, as for storage, we'll be upgrading to a 256 gig M.2 SSD, essentially doubling what comes in here stock. It only costs about 50 bucks on eBay, so not terrible when seen in the context of the overall price of this thing, about a third of the cost, but everything else in here is, again, rather cheap and rather dated, which is how they were able to fit it into such a small footprint. You don't need a lot of cooling because this chip runs super low frequencies, even boost frequencies, I think up to 2.2 gigahertz, which is literally nothing. I don't even think I can downclock my CPU to 2.2 gigahertz. I don't think it'll even go that low. So that's one of the ways they were able to keep the thermal footprint rather small. And yeah, so the one thing that I really wanted to upgrade here was storage. I didn't think 50 bucks was a big deal. The problem is, though, we're not going to have Windows 10 installed on the new drive. The drive that ships with this unit obviously has Windows 10 Pro installed. That's a big plus for people that don't want to deal with the hassle. But if you happen to have a blank drive and you need Windows 10 installed, what better way to activate it than with our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. So for a limited time, you can get an OEM license for about 13 or so US dollars using our special promo code, which is good only for another week or so, GSVIP. That will give you a 35% discount on that OEM code, and it'll mean that you don't have to deal with that annoying watermark anymore. If you've been dealing with it, say bye-bye, it literally takes a few dollars, right? And it beats paying retail prices, that's for sure. And the only real trade-off with an OEM license is that that key will lock to the hardware with which it is activated. Meaning, if you swap any major components later on down the line, that key may no longer be valid and you'll see the new watermark pop up again. But if you're swapping motherboards every other week, you probably shouldn't worry about a watermark. You'll be paying so many times into it that it just doesn't make any sense to activate at all. Most people, however, are sitting on their rigs for at least a few months, if not years, and that one OEM key should be good for the lifetime of that system, so long as the hardware doesn't change in between activation and whatever you swap in later on. So again, that's GSVIP. That'll give you a 35% off of a Windows 10 Pro OEM license, bringing your total to around 13 bucks or so. I'm gonna use the same code. I can use my own promo code, right? Yeah, for the new drive we put into here. So all I need to do is install Windows 10 Pro through a bootable USB and then pay about 13 bucks to fully activate it. It's literally that simple. Also, be sure to check out other deals happening right now at VIP SCD Key. Their midsummer year sale is pretty hot, and every successful purchase means you'll be entered into a raffle to win something else as well. That's kind of a win-win. Anyway, back to this thing. Support selection here in the T34 is actually pretty darn good. You get 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports here to the left, as well as an SD card reader. Off to the rear, you've got a power button, you've got a DC connector, you've got 2 HDMI ports, good for 4K at, I believe, 60 Hertz. You also get an Ethernet port, which is pretty awesome. And then on the right side, you've got 2 more USB 3.0 Type A ports. Now the front, almost in cursive, it says connect to a wonderful life. It's a bit weird. I guess it's a Beeling thing. It's cute, but it's not what I would have preferred to have seen at the front of this device. At the bottom, you'll find a ton of text, extra ventilation holes, and a cutout for a very compact fan, similar to what you find in some laptops. So this is actively cooled. It will probably make quite a bit of noise when under load. We'll be sure to test that in this video. And then here's what the top looks like, Beeling logo, and then an Intel Inside logo off to the bottom right. Build quality overall, really nice. Metal finish. You can see it's got chamfered edges. Yeah, it gives you a nice premium feel. It's not made of plastic, which is actually quite inviting. Now in the box, you'll find an AC adapter, which is extremely compact. Cable length is about 4 feet or so, and I suppose this speaks to the overall low power nature of the PC. It's nothing to be, again, too excited about. Don't expect to play any modern games on this. You'll also get 2 HDMI cables. One of them is extremely short. Now this here is the 256 gig Transcend SSD that will be upgrading in the Beeling system. So this should fit in the small form factor Beeling build, which is, yeah, that's why I got this over the 2280. I'm not sure a 2280 would even fit. Now opening this thing should be pretty straightforward. You'll turn it around and notice that there aren't any exposed screws. That's because I'm pretty sure they're under these little rubber feet to the left and right. So we'll need to pry these off first. I'll just use my plastic pry tool. I don't want to scratch this metal surface. And there we go. So it looks like Phillips screws, 2 on this side, and I'm assuming 2 on this side as well. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think we can just lift this up. Oh, almost. There we go. And here we go. The internals of a very, very low power, very affordable, very compact little PC. And I do think we need to remove this entire heatsink to get to that drive. Get this last screw here, I believe. And this should come right up. Awesome. Now this here is obviously the Celeron N3450. It is extremely low power. It does have integrated graphics baked in, which is obviously important if you want any display out. There's clearly no discrete card involved here. And it's a quad core chip. Despite being very, very low power, I think that the 4 cores will come in handy for the kind of emulation we're going for. So a quick little Phillips screw here to remove. And the drive just slide on out. And in goes the 256 gig. There we go. I'm kind of surprised that this heatsink didn't include any thermal pads or thermal paste. You can see the bare copper cold plate there is just that, it's bare. And of course we have the bare die underneath. So there's no thermal interface at all between these two, and I feel like there really should be. So what I'm gonna do is add a bit of thermal compound here. I'm just gonna use some Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut, and hopefully that fixes any potential temp issues we would have had otherwise. This just does not seem right. Also, while we're here, something I did know this PC included was dual band wireless, so that's really nice. This is a 31, I think it's a 3165. Also includes Bluetooth, which is nice. We don't need to hardwire any controller we want to use with our emulators directly to the unit. Now I'm actually going to be applying Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme here, and it's pink-ish. Kind of pink, kind of purple. I don't know what color this is, but it looks awesome, and it should provide much better thermal headroom for this CPU. I'm really glad I decided to upgrade this SSD, as otherwise I would never have known that this heatsink was missing thermal compound. Woo-wee. All right, so back plate, gonna reinstall that. I actually am not sure which way this is supposed to go. Okay, this way here. Nice. Just slots back in. Cool. And the feet still have plenty of adhesive remaining, so we can just reinsert these. And yeah, all right, there we go. All right, now I have my bootable USB ready to go. If you don't know how to set one of these up for a Windows installation, we have a dedicated video walking you through this step by step. Check it out in the video description. Otherwise, let's get it plugged into this little machine here and see if everything works out. So we'll just connect it like so. And then we'll push the power button at the rear. And it knows to boot right into the USB because obviously there's nothing on the brand new drive I just purchased. So we're gonna swing through this really quick. Again, the video that I just mentioned will talk you through all of this here, but we're gonna skip through it and we'll talk about activating Windows right after we get through this. The next thing we need to do is activate this copy of Windows before that horrid watermark pops up. Swinging over to our video sponsor, VIP Ssd Key. Their Windows 10 Pro OEM link is down below in the video description. You click on that, you can sign in if you want, and then you're gonna click the buy button. Now at this screen, you're going to want to enter that special promo code we gave you earlier in the video, GSVIP. And then after clicking here, you should see a pretty hefty discount applied. Next, we're going to check out, and I like to use PayPal for all my checkouts. It's very secure. I like that VIP Ssd Key includes a PayPal option here. Just sign into your account, complete the purchase, and then you'll end up on this screen here. Swinging over to the user center page, find your most recent key purchase, click here, and then click here, which will reveal your key. Now you're going to want to copy this and paste it into your system's activation window. You can click change product key. If it says something like this, it'll pop up with a prompt to enter the key. Make sure that you enter it verbatim, otherwise it obviously won't work. It's not the key that you purchased. Click enter, and shortly after, your system will be fully activated with an OEM license. And it's bye-bye watermark. Well, after setting everything up, I figured the most responsible thing to do would be to install Cinebench and see just how powerful this Celeron is. 659 points though, that's not good at all. And for some context, here in the little database, they have a Core i7 7700K desktop grade CPU here, scoring 6302. We are literally a tenth of that, folks. 1/10 the power of an older Core i7. At this point, I have no idea if this thing's even gonna be able to run a PlayStation 1 emulator.
A few moments later.
Hey, anybody remember this? It is storming outside, so please ignore the random thunder. This is such a throwback. So I've downloaded Gran Turismo. I own a copy of this game. I've owned it for several years. I grew up playing the Gran Turismo, the OG Gran Turismo games especially. 1, 2, 3, and especially 4. 4 was my favorite. But this is the first one. And good, we've got the controller working too. I have hardwired it to the PC. I'm gonna try syncing it up via Yep, I'm gonna try syncing it up via Bluetooth later. This is awesome. Hey, we got a Prelude here with VTEC 190 horsepower for 9,800 credits. We gonna buy this bad boy for our first race. By the way, I know you're probably really annoyed by this small window here. I've been trying to set it up for 1080p and it always kind of screws things up. It makes the picture like way too big, way too zoomed in. So I'm working on calibrating that. But I do want to test first at this resolution here, which is 800 by 600, and see if it works. Let's give it a shot. I totally forgot I need a Class B license to do any racing at all in Gran Turismo simulation mode. So we're just gonna go with arcade mode here, do a single race. We'll just do high speed rank. All right, it's a little laggy. Yep. It's pretty choppy. Let's see if that continues though. Okay, now while we're racing, actually pretty good. Staying at around 60 frames per second, that's not bad. For some reason, that intro, right before we started, our frame rate was just all over the place, but this looks pretty good right now, I've got to say. This is surprising me. I think this is going to be the upper limit, though, when it comes to what we can run. I don't think we're going to be able to run a PlayStation 2 emulator, folks. I just don't see that happening. Good God, it has been a while since I've driven on a controller. All right, so the next big test is 1080p. If I can get this thing to run at 1080p, heck, even at 30 FPS, if I have to lock it, that would be a win in my book. But 60 is obviously going to be my target. We can get 60 at 800 by 600. Let's see if we can get full screen 1080p, 60 FPS. All right, so the menus look pretty good. We've got full screen 1080p going here. I'm just going to do single race. I'm actually going to do the exact same race we did prior. I'm going to pick the exact same car as well. And yeah, let's see how this goes. Well, it looks pretty smooth at the intro here. It was pretty choppy before. This looks pretty nice. Okay, bit of lag there. It's a bit weird. Hopefully it smooths out though. It did before. Right now we're at about 28 to 30 FPS, at least what it shows us on the top left, but it's definitely not a consistent 28 FPS. I mean, it's very choppy. Feel like, yeah, we're kind of moving in slow motion here. I mean, like I said, menus seem fine. We jump right up to 60 FPS, but then we start racing again. It just hits the crapper. Now, I have been able to get Crash Bandicoot to work no problem. I do have it set up in widescreen mode, which is why you're seeing weird artifacting on the edges. The game is just not drawing those frames on the ends because it was only designed to run in 4:3 aspect, and right now we're trying to force it into 16:9. So that's why you have the weird graphical glitch. I mean, you could just put it in like stretch widescreen mode and everything would look a bit wider, but that would get around this issue. I'm not too worried about it because I'm only focused on what's in the center. Nonetheless, you can see our frame rate there is pretty much pegged at 60 FPS, which is really nice. So if you're into Crash Bandicoot, you have this game already. That's important. You don't want to, you know, it is definitely illegal if you're ripping ROMs that you do not otherwise own. This, I would say, falls under fair use, according to how I've interpreted the law regarding ROM usage. But yeah, this game is, I mean, it's just awesome. I really, really enjoy playing the just OG PlayStation games like this. Crash Bandicoot was one of my favorite. Gran Turismo was as well. Unfortunately, that one's being a bit weird. I'm going to try one more PlayStation game, and we'll see if we see similar issues with that. I can't imagine that Gran Turismo would be any more intensive than Crash Bandicoot, and we're definitely not CPU limited, so I'm really not sure what's going on. But I'm probably going to try one more game, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So the game I've downloaded is Spider-Man, and I just love this game. This is like super nostalgia. Start not working? There we go. Okay, so let's do a new game, and yeah, let's just see how it goes. Oh yeah, this is great. This is, I mean, this is full-fledged 60 FPS here. I bet we could probably run shaders with this game. Cool thing is it supports widescreen formats, it looks like, so we don't get any weird artifacting on the edges. And we're in 1080p. So yeah, this is a win all around. We could probably run shaders with this. I think, yeah, running shaders would really clean this image up a bit, but it's very smooth, not choppy at all. It's just a overall really good looking game. All right, and just as a sanity check, I decided to download Gran Turismo 2, also a game that I own, played a long time, and we're gonna see if this runs races well. Again, the menu system was fine, even in the original Gran Turismo, but for some reason, we were having problems with the races. So let's try Sunday Cup. I bought a Toyota Celica 4-wheel drive, and yeah, cross our fingers here, watching that frame counter at the top left, hoping that it stays around 60. All right, looking good so far. Yes. Oh, that is smooth. Now, it doesn't look the hottest, I'll admit. I think we're gonna have to stretch the screen. I mean, the field of view, I understand. Just like Crash Bandicoot, it's not designed for widescreen, and Spider-Man was the same way, actually. I realized the buildings weren't being rendered if they were on the edges. It just, it looked as though everything was in check there. So the last thing I want to do then is try to run a pretty high-end shader, see if we can clean this image up and not compromise the frame rate at all. And wow, check this out. Looks so smooth. I actually bumped up resolution scaling to ×2, so everything in the game looks much more modern. I mean, despite clearly older textures, everything is much smoother, which is really nice to see. Now, it is a bit glitchy. Obviously, you can see some weird lines and things in the distance, and that's, of course, the result of this resolution scaling here, but I'll take that trade-off all day. Also, notice that the menu screens in this particular game are a bit glitchy, but in the race, you can see we are pegged at pretty much 60 FPS. It is very smooth here, and this is the part of the game where it really matters. So, very pleased overall with the performance here. Well, I might have been a bit too optimistic when it came to this PC's potential. This is unplayable. It's like super slow, super laggy. It's like it's trying, I don't know, it's like it's trying to force a frame rate because it's in slow motion and it really shouldn't be. It should just be super choppy. But yeah, the CPU is really struggling here, and this is just in the vanilla 1080p resolution. So I don't really think I'm gonna try much more here. I think this pretty much speaks for itself. Whew, this is bad. Well, I've got to say, this little Beelink T34 here, it surprised me. I mean, despite not being able to run PlayStation 2 games very well, which I don't think is a shock to anybody given the hardware in here, it ran PS1 games just fine in the PS1 emulator. I mean, we're talking Spider-Man, Gran Turismo 2, Crash Bandicoot, classic PlayStation games that were very popular in their day. You can play all of those on here, 60 FPS, 1080p, with shaders, full screen. No problem. That's not bad for 150 bucks. And on top of that, this T34 will do obviously a lot more than just emulation. It'll, you know, run Microsoft Office for you. You can surf the web with this thing. You can watch Netflix with this thing, especially if you don't have a smart TV. Having something like this can really pack a punch. With the graphics card market as volatile as it is right now, I mean, it's acting as a serious barrier to entry for so many people trying to build gaming desktops right now. Now, this is not a gaming desktop. Beelink is not claiming that it is. You cannot game with this, okay? Don't expect to download Steam and just play whatever you want. We're talking maybe Minesweeper, maybe Windows XP Pinball. You get where I'm going with this. It's just not a gaming PC. But for emulation, if that's the kind of gaming you might be interested in, you're not interested in dusting off the old console that might not even work anymore, but you have plenty of games that you want to download ROMs for to run on this thing, I think it's plenty doable. And for $100 or so US dollars, jeez. You can do so much with this. Obviously, this isn't a replacement for a gaming desktop. No one is saying that it is. In fact, if you wanted to follow this model here, right, and just game on integrated graphics, maybe emulate with integrated graphics, you could totally do that with a gaming tower. Buy an Intel processor that has an IGP, a modern Intel processor at that, and it'll run emulation just fine. And you could probably play PS2 games without a hitch at all on integrated graphics, and just wait for whenever the graphics card market corrects and GPUs become much more attainable. When that happens, you could just add your graphics card and then get a full-fledged desktop. So that's a different side of the coin, right? If you're aiming for a desktop at the end of the day, you could certainly do that. Obviously, it's going to cost you a bit more. But if you're looking for a small footprint, something very portable, very low power, it didn't run very hot at all, even though the fan was on the entire time I was touching it. It's honestly pretty cool to the touch. And it doesn't cost a lot, like $100, $150 at the most. This is pretty impressive for emulation up to PlayStation 1. That's a win in my book. So with that, be sure to let me know in the comment section below what you think about little systems like these. I mean, do they have a place in the market? I think they do. They sell quite a number of these actually. Now what they use them for, that's a different story. A lot of people use these just for surfing the web, maybe watching Netflix or YouTube, maybe some light Microsoft Office work. But console emulation, that's a new one, and it can be done up to around PlayStation 1 potential with specifications like these. Not bad. This one has 6 gigs of RAM. I thought that was a pretty big selling point at the $100, $150 price range. A lot of these had 4 gigs of RAM. Windows 10 is comparatively pretty heavy. It's a pretty heavy operating system for something this weak. So I'm actually pretty curious at this point how it will handle Linux. I think Linux could be the answer here. We might even be able to pull off PlayStation 2 emulation with Linux. Certain distros of Linux, at least. We'll find out. Anyway, yeah, comment, subscribe, like, dislike, whatever you want to do. Thanks for watching this far into the video. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.